Pretty common in comics for people to refer to the Dark Phoenix Saga. But what is that saga? And why is it that just calling it the Dark Phoenix Saga, to me, often feels like you're missing quite a bit of the actual story that's involved? Well, if you're new to comics or you've heard this get thrown around, but you never really dove into it, let's talk about the Uncanny X-Men, the Dark Phoenix Saga, where it kind of began and why there's a lot more to it. Hey everybody, this is Perch. The Dark Phoenix Saga is one of those things that it's the story that people talk about in Uncanny X-Men. But the reality is the actual Dark Phoenix point, when Jean Grey became the Dark Phoenix, was actually pretty late in the little run that that comes into it. I think probably about 134, I think, is really where the Dark Phoenix was actually came about. And this is where you have to go back. So I'm holding in my hands, you can't see it here, but it's an old trade paperback that was made by Marvel Entertainment Group, a New World company. That tells you how old it all is. But in 1984, they published this, and it's a great little the way the comics trade paperbacks used to work. What's actually kills me about this is the cover price, $8.95. Yeah, but be that as it may, you've got quite a bit of story here. You've got about 180-ish pages worth of comic, and it starts with a story called "God Spare the Child," which was Uncanny X-Men number 129. And it goes all the way through basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 comics to comprise this Dark Phoenix Saga, which ends with the Fate of the Phoenix, which I think is issue number 137. And so you had a bunch of comics here, but a lot happened in these. It's kind of funny to think about it today. The amount of world building, character development, new characters being introduced, created, villains, everything else in this run was pretty crazy. But the reason why a lot of people certainly like it is because of Chris Claremont, John Byrne, and Terry Austin. I think people always forget about Terry Austin, but Austin made Byrne's work look really, really sharp, and was really on point. But you had a story that basically comprises the X-Men at the time, the new X-Men. Jean Grey is there. We've got she'd embraced her Phoenix powers, so she's wearing the green and gold suit. And the comic had just kind of come out of the Proteus bit over on Muir Island, and Moira is there with Banshee. Now, one little bit, I'll just kind of pull these out. There's some tiny little moments in all this that were at least Chris Claremont setting up that more was going on with Moira at the time. People miss it because it happens really, really subtly in here. But there's some stuff with both Madrox and Banshee and Moira that indicate that at this point, Claremont was starting to set up things that, in many cases, it took Jonathan Hickman to really pay off. Now, I highly doubt that what Hickman did in Dawn of X was what Claremont was setting up, with there being more to Moira than meets the eye. But it is interesting to see that little bit here. But the comic sets up Mastermind, who's in the process of trying to control Jean Grey. So this introduces really the Hellfire Club and kind of this whole dynamic of who they are and kind of this manipulation that was going on, people manipulating Jean Grey. The Dark Phoenix Saga really began with that Hellfire Club manipulation. We get some great moments here with Wolverine and Cyclops going back and forth, some Danger Room activity, and we get to kind of meet and be more introduced to the Hellfire Club and Sebastian Shaw and the White Queen and characters that had been working behind the scenes all the way back to Warhawk several issues earlier, like that was back in issue 110. So for basically about almost 20 issues, Claremont had been teasing kind of this shadowy group that was going to have a big impact to the X-Men. But this comic also does a job of introducing us to Kitty Pryde, and basically bringing her into X-Men. Of course, she would become Shadowcat. We get some basic sentries here causing some mayhem. The Hellfire Club is overtly making their move by kidnapping some pretty heavy hitters in the X-Men: Wolverine, Storm, and Colossus, and for some reason stripping them naked. But anyway, but Kitty Pryde finds herself in a bad situation, stuck. We also get to see Dazzler here in the next issue, and kind of put her into the forefront. She wouldn't really come to be part of the X-Men in any kind of major way for quite some time, but this introduced that character in a bigger sense to the Marvel Universe. There'd been when I say introduced, I mean more introduced as a character within the X-Men, as somebody who is going to be part of that mythology. There'd been material before. But we definitely see this kind of background approach. This whole comic, this run, spent quite a long time kind of burning up the Hellfire Club, slowly drawing the noose around the X-Men's necks and really laying out their plan in a pretty major way. Where when Jean Grey finally confronts Emma Frost and the X-Men are kind of running amok in the mansion, we get to see that. It's still not clear what all is going on with kind of the manipulation. But I guess the point I'm trying to make here is 4 issues in, we're still dealing with this slow corruption of Jean Grey by the Hellfire Club. But we see them come back into the picture. They are the primary villains. We often think about the Dark Phoenix Saga as being about, Dark Phoenix, the Shi'ar, and kind of this cosmic bit of the story, but that doesn't really come into play until much, much later. There's several issues where we get kind of this back and forth between the X-Men and the Hellfire Club, and that is the bulk of the storyline. The final emergence of the Dark Phoenix is, I think, as I mentioned before, it's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 issues in when the Dark Phoenix really kind of becomes a threat, and it becomes the birth of a god, as is mentioned. And this is why I think people remember this storyline fondly, because it's complex. There's a lot of going on. By the way, in the midst of all this is arguably, Claremont's big storyline he was building to, that's going to lead to the death of Jean Grey. He's weaving in with other characters. We see brief appearances by Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four. We've got some other subplots going on with things going on with Moira and the Angel. There's a lot of things that that he's going to pay off in many issues to come. I mentioned the introduction of Kitty Pryde, the stuff with Dazzler. There's just quite a lot in here. And certainly we get some big iconic moments to the storyline itself, the Dark Phoenix storyline. But none of this means that Chris Claremont's kind of ignoring the other things that are going on. So when some people say, oh, I wish comics were like the Dark Phoenix Saga, it's a bit of a, to me, it's misleading, because it's the entire X-Men experience you've got at this point that was really building a bigger universe. Finally, when we do get into space, Jean Grey blows up a planet. We get, she's running amok in space, and we get the Shi'ar and kind of assembling this council of aliens to destroy the Dark Phoenix. She's going to and from Earth. We get appearances by the Beast and other characters that hadn't been in the X-Men for a bit. And there's just, it finally comes down to, as Jean Grey is sort of at least temporarily restored, she kind of is able to shake off some of this Dark Phoenix. They have a battle, and they're able to get through to her through Professor X and Cyclops showing her love. I'll never forget, she kind of passes out. I think this is Central Park, that she passes out, and then Cyclops she's completely naked at this point. Cyclops is carrying her around. Her dad has to bring a robe. I think it's some of this dialogue is funny in hindsight, because she just come back from blowing up a planet and going full evil, and then she's naked in the park, and the dad's handing her a robe, and Jean's thought is, oh dear, I don't believe it, Dad is blushing. Well, you also murdered a planet, but it is what it is. So we get to the final battle, which is the Imperial Guard and kind of carrying out this sentence that Jean Grey kind of must die, and of course it's a fight between the two. So we get the X-Men kind of out of their element, holding their own, but we also get the fact that Jean Grey is losing control, even though that she was able to kind of briefly shake off this dark influence. It's back, and so she sacrifices herself in order to keep from being kind of a big global threat. Now, the sad part about this, I think, is that the Phoenix Force would come up over and over again, and in many cases, they let it lie for a long time in X-Men. They just let the storyline be what it was, and then then they kind of started to come back to it and back to it and back to it. And by the time we got to AVX, there seems like every other year we're doing something with the Phoenix Force, but. I guess in summary, looking back at this issue or these set of issues, first off, the reason why a lot of people love it and it's so magical to people is that there's just a lot going on in a relatively small amount of comics. You get a lot of story. You get some pretty major elements in the X-Men. You, of course, get a major status quo change with Jean Grey and kind of that team in general. After this, Cyclops would leave, Kitty Pryde would come in, and it wasn't afraid to make some bold choices. And at the same time, it was teeing up the next story. This is something that Chris Claremont always did very, very well. Even in the story you're reading, he's teasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. He would go on to the Days of Future Past storyline, which is almost as fondly remembered as a Dark Phoenix Saga in terms of major events with the X-Men. But even after that, you had some wonderful moments in Japan with Wolverine, with Magneto, with Storm kind of losing her powers, leading into the Mutant Massacre, and just some major moments. And so next time you hear somebody say, oh, the Dark Phoenix Saga is kind of the height, I'd remind them that it's actually, there was a lot going on. And the Dark Phoenix Saga itself, that single story, was actually, pretty small, all things considered. And I don't think would have had anywhere close to the impact if not for the Proteus storyline and the things that came before and after. The Claremont run of X-Men comprised, more than 10 years of really powerful comics and storytelling. And I think it's really hard to identify just the one or two storylines in there. You have to look at it all at once. But pretty powerful stuff. And I think it's definitely one of those things that's remembered fondly in the hearts of a lot of people. And these are some of the reasons why. But now to you, do you love this story? And this is one you've remembered. Are you somebody who's never read this and are worried about getting into it? One of the crazy things about this storyline is a lot of people came into it from issue 129. They picked up that same trade paperback I was just holding, and that was their introduction. And there was no like, here are the X-Men, here's who these characters are. None of that. It's just like, here you go, you're tossed into the deep end. You don't even know why, why are the X-Men in Scotland? What are they doing there? Who are these people? So many people came into the X-Men with that issue. For a lot of people, that was their first introduction. And yet it caught them and it worked. And I think there's a major lesson there for comic publishers of, you don't need to bend over backwards to make things super accessible. You don't need to spend an entire issue kind of reminding people who the characters are. You can do it as you go. And I think that's another reason why this whole storyline is well remembered, is because it was the introduction to a lot of people to the X-Men, and it just worked. It was exciting. It caught them, and it didn't pander to them that they needed to go read a bunch of other things. But anyway, leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've read this, if you like it, if this is something that's fondly remembered. Do you think it's overrated? Let me know. And subscribe. Hey, thank you for everybody who's subscribed lately. My subscribers are growing like crazy, and I'm not completely sure why, but I'm very thankful. Follow me on social media. But most importantly, as always, thanks for listening.